So as we discussed in part one of this video, Richard Ewell camped in Heidlersburg on the night of June 30th with the divisions of Robert Rhodes, and about 3 miles east of here, the division of Jubal Early. Now, Robert Rhodes had almost 8,000 men in his division. So I'm sure that they camped like this entire area all the way around Heidlersburg. And we do have a few claims files from after the war that describe damages done to the farms in this area by this campsite. But I want to talk a little bit about kind of an unusual story that deals with this particular stone that has a plaque on the front of it. And this property we're standing on, about 3.5 acres of land, was owned by Martin Wade. Now, Martin Wade was born in Virginia. He moved to Heidlersburg at some point on his life. He retired, and in 1957 he bought a house and a small piece of land just north of the square of Heidlersburg. He died in May of 1969. And according to locals here that knew him for the last years of his life, he was a kind soul. The bachelor was jolly and liked people. He was a gardener, a bird watcher, and at his home here had a 3.5 acre plot surrounded by flowers. According to one resident in Heidlersburg, he was a real gentle person. An attorney for the estate described Wade as a sentimental Irishman. He had no immediate relatives living. So, according to his will, he gives a lot of money to the church. He gives money to the cemetery in Harrisburg, where he was to be buried. And there are a couple unusual items in his will. Let me read one of them. Inasmuch as the Tyrone Township lands on which I reside at the time of the execution of this will, located along U.S. Route 15, immediately north of the village of Heidlersburg, Adams County, Pennsylvania, constitute a portion of the area occupied by Confederate troops under the command of General Robert E. Rhodes immediately prior to the Battle of Gettysburg, I give and devise all my said lands at this location as a historic shrine, and for the erection of a suitable monument or marker thereon unto the state of Alabama, whose troops he commanded at that time. So he's talking about the fact that Robert Rhodes, the division commander, who was part of the division here, was originally the commander, or was one of the commanders of the Alabama Brigade, and had just been risen to division command. So apparently the state of Alabama accepted the ground, and at some point they put up a marker on the property. And I have never seen pictures of it. I don't know exactly what they're talking about with a marker. In 1978, 10 years after Wade had died, Frederick Kuntz, then a township supervisor for Tyrone Township, saw the marker placed that Alabama had put on the land. He and Glenn Kime, then the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, wrote to Alabama state officials in Montgomery and proposed that they donate the land to the township for the use of their municipal building. Up until that time, the Board of Tyrone Township had met in the Heidlersburg Fire Hall, or in the home of one of the township supervisors or the secretary. Alabama agreed to donate the land to the township with the stipulation that the township furnish a suitable monument with an appropriate private inscription. So Wade's dilapidated house was torn down, the property was cleaned up, the monument was erected, and the township built their facility, which includes their offices and a garage for the township equipment. And the stone here with the plaque on it was dedicated on June 23rd, 1983. And it is certainly one of the more unusual monuments in our area. I wanted to mention that we also have a civilian account relating to the campsite here at Heidlersburg. It's from Samuel Hammers, a boy of 11 at the time who lived with his family at the Rock Creek Chapel, which is not far up north of here. His father was a foreman of the McGeary wool mill not far from the church. Many years after the war, Hammers reflected on his experiences in the Confederate camps that day and the effect that it had on the rest of his life. And I'll read the account. Father and mother were at work at the factory. We, meaning himself, took a walk to the camp and went into the midst of 40,000 men. Well, 8,000. The camp had hundreds of dead carcasses of all kinds of animals. The men were receiving their meat and had been busy preparing for the evening meal when two men came riding down the road from Gettysburg blowing their bugles. They rode into camp and said, the two young Confederates, "Where did that boy come from?" They said, "He lives up the road on that hill at that old church. He said his pap and mom came from Virginia." The officer said, "You two men take him up to his home and then fall in line as we have an engagement at Gettysburg where you hear those big guns." Of course, this is the day before the battle, not the day of the battle, so that doesn't make much sense. As we left the camp, we noticed some soldiers were throwing away packs of nice picture cards. We picked up a pack, and on the way home we asked one of the escorts why the men threw away these nice cards. He replied, "Son, these are cards which bad men use to gamble with. When soldiers go into battle, they throw them away as they do not wish to be found dead with cards on their bodies." Both of these men were talking to the good man praying. When we reached our gate, these men said, "Goodbye, son, and remember, never use cards when you have grown up." From that day to this, that was the only pack of cards that was ever handled by us. As we grew up, we often thought that if dead men did not desire cards to be found on their bodies, why should live men be so foolish as to have them and spend their time with them? This boy grew up, and now at the age of 80, we can truthfully say that we never handled cards, that we've never attempted to dance, and never attended a movie, and never was a member of a secret society nor a worldly club. I just love how he ties these lessons in life in with soldiers throwing away playing cards as they're marching off to the Battle of Gettysburg. Remember, if you like the content that we put on our YouTube page, please like and subscribe.